the time. There's interaction between species all the time. These planes or disks or wedges or are in our skies all the time. I was in Sedona, Arizona, for crying out loud, on a night sky tour. Of course, we picked a full moon night, but that's okay. It was still amazing. And as we're sitting there, I saw one. And you could have knocked me over with a feather, because I had seen things in the past, but nothing that was so blatant and with full disregard for being seen. It was bizarre. And the astronomer with me was trying to poo-poo the whole idea. And fortunately, someone behind me that I didn't know had seen it also and said, no, she's right. I saw that come off the horizon line too, and it stopped right there in that constellation, and it is still sitting there. Why don't we set your equipment up? Which we did not, because he couldn't be bothered. Obviously, we were insane, right? But it does happen. And it's a little iffy when you see it and you're kind of like, am I safe? Am I not safe? I've spoken with people who had very extreme experiences, one of whom said that she had a child that is an alien. There was a woman who was in Pasadena who completely looked like a star child. She was beautiful. And it was just really pretty cool and eye-opening, because it's not something I run across in day-to-day life. So it was pretty neat. And Daniel in chat says that he usually just waves and then blinks the flashlight at the UFOs to get them communicating. And trust me when I say I can totally see Daniel doing that. That's too fun. But they don't care if you see them. They're not here to hide anymore, apparently. And when I was out watching meteor showers, there was something that came up right over our house, 2 of them, and just sat there and watched right along with us. So when you stop to think that, oh, well, the government is doing all this and they're hiding all this, and you have to understand they were frightened too. There was a lot riding on that. So you live and you learn. But I don't understand really why they feel they have to continue this evasiveness. I have always said for decades now that I really think War of the Worlds was a test, the original, not the movie, and that we failed. People killed themselves when Orson Welles was doing that broadcast. People literally jumped out of windows. People literally died because they were afraid. We failed miserably. So I'm interested to see. Everybody expects full disclosure, someone to land on the White House lawn, that's the saying, all this other stuff. And I don't think that's going to happen, because I think we're in the midst of full disclosure right now. And when we get back, we're going to talk about that just a little bit.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
welcome back to Paranormal Experience. I am your host, Kat Hobson, and thank you so much for being here. We appreciate that. We are talking tonight about the AlienCon experience that I had out in Pasadena, California. I am so excited to be able to bring this information to you. I am looking forward to sharing. I got so tickled because we're in the midst of talking about all these craft that were showing up, and we're talking about in the different war eras, and discs versus wedges versus you name it. They were showing up everywhere. And then I was lucky enough to catch this input. And I don't know why I could hear that, and it looks like you couldn't. But that was David Childress, who was talking about all the good times, right? The Foo Fighters. He's a big fan. So I hope you were able to hear that, because that was part of the conversation, too, is that these things were showing up everywhere. It wasn't just a random, here we are. It wasn't just a every so often kind of a thing. This was a constant show. And I know that Wright-Patterson is a testing facility, a building and testing facility that the United States owns. There's Wright Field, and then there's Wright-Patterson Air Base. And research and development was pretty okay. So the odds are that a lot of the things that were being seen and are being seen are ours. That doesn't make them any less unidentified, right? It just means that we're doing pretty good if that's what we're putting out. No doubt about it. So I think that one of the things that people are so quick to just say, nope, not happening, is because they assume it's ours. What did you think of those videos? The videos the Navy put out in December of 2017, right? The story that came out with them is that logistically our equipment can't do that. Logistically, our bodies can't do that. Logistically, that's not a happening thing. That's not ours. Obviously, because our fighter jets were stunned by it in the videos, and because everybody's like, dude, then it must be something unusual. I'm fortunate enough to not only have gotten to spend time listening to Eric Von Daniken twice this month, but also Mike Barra, who is fun and irreverent, a great author, and someone I find fascinating to listen to, because he is pretty much what you see is what you get. His opinion on the releases of the videos are that those are drones. Unmanned means they don't have to be bound by physics that would tear us apart, but would allow an unmanned structure to continue to function. And the speed, I'm not sure about the speed. He seems to think that's possible. And Daniel says yes. He says, didn't you also talk to Professor Friedman? And Stanton Friedman is someone that is my friend, as well as having been my guest, and will be back. We are working on scheduling that. He has been so supportive. He's just a wonderful person. But I have talked with him, and he is of the opinion that if you give enough money to someone, we were talking about warp speeds and going faster than the speed of light and actually achieving warp drives and that type thing. And we're going to get into that shortly too with Dr. Travis Taylor, who is probably one of my new heroes. Excuse me. But Stan is just completely, if you put enough money into it, it's going to work. It's how we got to the moon. That's how we got our hydrogen bombs built. That's how we built an atomic weapon. That's probably how we got our nuclear plants going. And he is the most patient physicist ever on the planet, and did not mind explaining fission versus fusion to me when I got confused in my speech one day. And I appreciated that, because you don't ask, you don't learn. But he probably is the most outspoken relevant to what is going on, as far as, yes, that is obviously possible. We can do anything. It just takes a little cash. So when you get into the laws of physics, obviously I'm not a physicist, but I was fortunate enough to be sitting in a room. The panel was 3 PhDs and Mike Barra, as he was quick to point out, and one of them was a double PhD. And he acted like that would be an issue, and it was completely not. And I mentioned that Travis Taylor is someone that I really was impressed with. I asked a question at the end of their panel, and I think that he took it the wrong way, because I think it came out the wrong way. But my fascination was the fact that this man works for NASA. He is currently employed by the U.S. government, working for NASA. He is a double PhD astrophysicist. He is a brilliant human. He is funny as all get out, which you're going to hear in some of these clips coming up. He is definitely Southern. He is from North Alabama, and sounds a lot like home for some of us. But he is so knowledgeable. So knowledgeable. I knew I was not going to miss his individual panel, because he was explaining the possibilities of teleportation. What has to be done to achieve a warp drive. What the different propulsion opportunities are for something like that. You know, it was such a fascinating experience. Wormholes, how are you going to get them? How do you make them? Do they look like they did in Contact, which happens to be one of my favorite movies? It's one of those you don't miss. I think that the entire concept of developing something past the speed of light is possible, because you know what? There's always more science, and there's always more math, and there are more answers. Maybe the theory of relativity was the best there was at its time, and now someone is going to come along who is more well-versed in the sciences and prove that that's not true. I think that's a great possibility. I think it's happening right now. I think they're not sure what they're going